Investigators detail Kohberger's movements before and after the murders.
The investigation into the murders of 4 Idaho college students.
They were successful. They were strong.
4 students living together were stabbed to death in their sleep. According to the police, it was a targeted attack from an unexpected suspect. Fueled by a motive so sinister and twisted, the case gripped the local community in fear. Before we proceed, we would like to extend our deepest condolences to the families of the victims. May they find peace and justice. It was November 12th, 2022, the city of Moscow in Idaho, United States. The University of Idaho students, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Goncalves were roommates in their 3-level off-campus apartment with 2 other housemates. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was with her for a visit. On that day, the couple, Ethan and Xana, were seen together around 9 p.m. at a Sigma Chi party, Ethan's fraternity. The event was a short walk to their apartment at King Road. They were together with their 2 other roommates, Madison Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves. Around 10 p.m., Madison and Kaylee were seen together headed to a sports bar called the Corner Club. A few hours later, at around 1:30 a.m. on November 13th, Madison and Kaylee were captured on a surveillance camera ordering food from a nearby food truck. Meanwhile, Xana and Ethan returned to their apartment around 1:45 a.m. It wouldn't be too long before Madison and Kaylee arrived too, at around 1:56 a.m. The 2 other housemates had arrived an hour before the 4 friends. A few hours later, one of the roommates, sleeping on the same floor as Xana and Ethan, was awoken by what she thought sounded like Kaylee and her dog. She then heard her roommate saying something along the lines of, "There's someone here," which could have been Kaylee or Xana. Shortly after, the roommate opened her door twice. On the second time, hearing what sounded like crying from Xana's room and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." This was around 4 a.m. That roommate then opened the door for the 3rd time and saw a man clad in black with a mask covering his mouth and nose walking toward her. Whether the man saw her or not is unclear, as he simply walked past her, leaving through the sliding glass door. The roommate eventually locked herself in her room. Around 11:58 a.m. on that same day, officers from the Moscow Police Department received a 911 call from a person whose identity could not be revealed. The caller asked for assistance for an unconscious person. Upon the arrival of the police, they made a startling discovery. Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee were found dead in their respective rooms. The other 2 housemates were fortunately unharmed. The killings received widespread media attention, prompting an extensive investigation from the Moscow Police Department, supported by the Idaho State Police and the Latah County Sheriff's Office. On November 17th, the bodies of the victims underwent autopsies. The results showed that they were stabbed multiple times with a large knife, fatally wounding their chest and upper body. While most of them were attacked in their sleep, some had defensive stab wounds on their hands, showing signs that they must have tried to fend off the attacker. Immediately, the police knew they were dealing with a homicide case. They assumed it was a targeted attack. However, the murder weapon was missing, prompting the police to scour through the nearby dumpsters and check local businesses to see if a knife was recently purchased. One of the housemates who survived saw the suspect. It was a lone man, around 5'10". She described him as not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. Why did it take so long for the roommate to call 911? The reason for the 8-hour gap was that the roommate thought they were still partying after the night out, mistaking the man believed to be the killer as a guest leaving the house. Still, the police opened the possibility of having more than one perpetrator. They opened their lines for the public to submit potential evidence. In less than a month, there had been thousands of submissions and tips received by the police. But then, a breakthrough. During a review of CCTV footage around the time of the incident, the police saw a fifth-generation Hyundai Elantra passing along the same route as the residence. An additional surveillance recording revealed multiple instances of an Elantra passing by the victim's residence, eventually speeding away at 4:20 a.m. Police traced the ownership of the car to a local individual named Brian Kohberger. Checking cell phone data, authorities found that Kohberger's phone utilized a cell tower near the victim's residence around 9 a.m. on November 13th, hours after the killings. The most incriminating evidence found on Kohberger was a DNA from the crime scene that didn't belong to any of the victims. It was removed from a tan leather knife sheath on Madison's bed. Using modern genealogy technology, the investigators were able to match it with Kohberger's DNA found outside his family's home in Pennsylvania. The evidence on Kohberger was piling up. Before he was arrested, Kohberger was observed outside of his parents' Pennsylvania home. He was seen wearing surgical gloves and dumping trash bags inside a neighbor's garbage can. Kohberger was also observed extensively cleaning his car. On December 30th, 28-year-old Brian Kohberger was taken into custody by an FBI SWAT team and Pennsylvania State Police at his parents' home. At the time of the killings, Kohberger was a doctoral student and a teaching assistant at Washington State University. Before he was arrested, Kohberger had received several warnings from the university. He was eventually terminated from his teaching post on December 19th, days before his arrest. The authorities believed this was a case of stalking initially, but nobody could say for certain what Kohberger's motives were since the case details are subject to a gag order. While Kohberger's true intentions for the crime are unclear, FBI profilers and investigators painted a sinister picture. Before the murders, Kohberger apparently sent a DM to the Instagram account of one of the victims saying, "Hey, how are you?" and sending it repeatedly when he received no response. According to retired FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole, Kohberger's likely target was Kaylee Goncalves, or her best friend Madison Mogen, or possibly both of them. O'Toole added that Kohberger must have hated the girls after they rejected him, saying, "Motives for some crimes are unusual in that they lie in the offender. He hated them. He needed them dead. Had they done anything to him? No. The victims were like objects to the killer." O'Toole said that the slightest perceived rejection set off a psychopath. Furthermore, the victims were reportedly targeted before Kohberger ever sent a message to one of the victims' Instagram, which drew a lot of online attention and had thousands of followers. Authorities were able to identify Kohberger's cell phone pinged at towers near the crime scene at least 12 times. The retired head of the FBI's Criminal Investigation Division, Chris Swecker, also agreed with O'Toole and chimed in on the case. He compared Kohberger to Ted Bundy, stating that Kohberger was awkward and disconnected. Swecker mentioned that Bundy also couldn't normally interact with women, drawing similarities to Kohberger's case. From this perspective, Swecker commented that Ethan and Xana were likely collateral damage. Kohberger was arrested on 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of burglary. He was detained without bond at the Monroe County Correctional Facility in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. After agreeing to extradition, he was transferred to the Latah County Jail in Moscow, where he was held without bail. On January 18, 2023, a list of items was seized by the authorities from Kohberger's apartment in Pullman, Washington. These included a pillow with reddish stains, a disposable glove, and multiple strands of hair. More than a month later, the authorities searched the home of Kohberger's parents in Pennsylvania, where he stayed, and found more incriminating evidence, such as 4 medical gloves, a silver flashlight, and a buccal swab DNA test. Prosecutors plan to ask for the death penalty if Kohberger is found guilty. They believe that the brutal nature of the killings and the presence of aggravating circumstances warrant this decision. Idaho has not carried out an execution since 2012. While the evidence against Brian Kohberger is substantial, the case is still ongoing. Kohberger is still held in Latah County Jail, awaiting his trial set for October 2nd, 2023. Everyone following the case is hoping that justice will prevail and closure will be brought to the victims' families. The murders of Xana, Madison, Kaylee, and Ethan shook the small community of Moscow to its core, and it shall be remembered and mourned for years to come. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications by activating the bell icon. By doing so, you'll never miss out on new content, and it really helps us make these videos. So, like, subscribe, and activate the bell. We appreciate your support.